Alright guys, so I told you I would demo some pie crust. Kind of left you hanging yesterday and most of the day today. I apologize. Yesterday was Allie's birthday and today Ruby wasn't feeling the best, so I spent a lot of day with being mom instead of teacher. But I wanted to get this done really quick so that you guys have it for the weekend. Reviewing pie crust. So you guys know what you're doing with this. I am 100% confident you all know how to make pie crust. However, because we were going to do Easter pies, and that's kind of where we got cut off, I thought I'd go ahead and start there. I had the stuff, I had it on our meal list to do a chicken pot pie. Actually, that's not true. We were going to do a turkey pot pie because we had some turkey leftovers. My children threw them away. So instead of doing the turkey pot pie, I have some chicken in there, and we're going to do some canned chicken. I've already made the chicken filling. I'll go ahead and post. I told the culinary class the same thing. I'll go ahead and post on Google Classroom the instructions to make the roux for the filling in case you want to do the same recipe I'm doing. You don't have to. You can do whatever pie you want to do. It doesn't even have to be a double crust, right? The recipe I'm using is from Crisco. And again, I will post the link, but you really can just Google it as well. Or some of you may have a trusted pie crust recipe at home that your family already uses. That's fine too. All right, so I'm measuring and leveling off some flour. Remember, you don't want to pack the flour in or you will end up with the wrong amount. My Crisco just came out of the fridge. And if you remember right, we put it in the fridge because it's so important that the fat remains in those chunks until it gets to the oven. You don't, in order to make those flaky layers, you really want the pie crust to be, or I'm sorry, the fat source within the pie crust to be a solid fat when it goes into the oven. If it's a liquid fat before then, it's going to absorb into the flour and you're going to miss those flaky layers. So, I don't, I think I've told many of you, I'm here at my mom's house and she doesn't have a pastry cutter or a pastry blender. So we're going to cut in the fat without a pastry blender, which is probably a good thing because maybe many of you at home don't have one either. All right, so I cut the fat into small chunks. I'm going to put the small chunks on top of the flour. I'm going to add in our salt, just 3/4 teaspoon. And then I'll show you how to cut it in with just 2 forks. You could also use 2 knives if you wanted to. Alright, I have our 2 forks here. When you cut in that flour, again, remember what your goal is to have the fat, you want a crumbly mixture where the fat is coated with the flour. You just go on. Sorry, the kitten is trying to help me here. He really wants to be involved with the tasting of the chicken mixture. He thinks that's a good time. So you're just going to work your 2 forks together. This also would work with 2 knives, things that most people have on hand. So you're just going to continue to cut your fat source, getting the forks against each other. I was going to show you the 2 knives technique, but I don't think I have another knife over here, so we'll just continue with this. We're going to continue cutting in that fat. Remember, what you want is that coarse, crumbly structure. As you can see, it's kind of coming along here. Let's see if we can't get that mixed up. Remember, once you start mixing, the heat of your hands is going to melt your fat. So you got to be real careful not to handle your pie crust too much with your bare hands because your hands are hot. All right. We're just about there, guys. I heard Vlad is headed back to his home here shortly. They got permission for him and the other Eastern Europe exchange students to go back. So that's exciting for him. I know there was some talk that maybe he was stuck here for a while. I think Eliza already went, so both of them are back home. All right, so as you can see here, we have coarse crumbs. Kind of looks like, I like to think of it like shoveled snow, although maybe today we don't want to think about that right now. I don't know. And then you're going to add in your cold water. I have ice water here. You're going to add it, the recipe says 4 to 8 tablespoons. But remember, you want to add that slowly because you don't want too much liquid or your pie crust will be soggy. So you add it slowly, a tablespoon at a time, okay? In the beginning here, I'm going to add a couple. Try not to get the ice in there. You're going to drizzle it over. You want just enough mixture, just enough moisture, but not too much. Too much, you're going to end up with that soggy crust. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to use the same fork to mix. Start mixing that in. I don't expect that it's going to come together with just this, right? I've only added in, it said 4 to 8. I've only at this point added 2. But we're going to still mix and try. It's starting to, you can tell it's wet. It's starting to be more crummy. I'm going to add 2 more. I think I'm pretty safe to do that. And at this point, it might start to come together, right? Because it said 4 to 8, and at this point I've added 4. So we're going to go ahead and mix those in. For those of you that had Reagan in class, she did have her baby boy, earlier this month. So congratulations to her. Hopefully he's sleeping a little bit and not driving her too crazy. All right, so I've got that pretty well mixed in, and as you can tell, it still is pretty dry. It's not coming together at all yet. So I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 more. Just add 2 more, guys. All right. Together. It's starting to a little bit. I don't think it's quite enough. I'm going to add 1 more. Continue to mix. And then at this point, it really becomes each pie crust is just a little bit different amount of water, right? Because you want your pie crust to come together, not be too soft, or I'm sorry, not too soggy, but not too dry either. It's not going to stick together if it's dry. Now this pie crust is a double pie crust, which means that when we start to work it together, it's still too crumbly, we're going to cut it in half. And half of it's going to be the bottom crust and half of it will be the top crust. Alright, so I'm just going to eyeball it, take half of it, put it in the bowl. We'll put that aside and we'll do that one in a minute. Make a little area here to roll it out. It's pretty happening workspace that have for people. Alright, so we're going to coat the table in flour, put down the pie crust. Remembering our serve safe protocols, I have my hair put up. I washed my hands before I started. I don't have an apron on because I don't have any with me. But of course that would be even safer. It's always important to practice those serve safe protocols at all times because then it becomes second nature. All right. I'm going to pick this up and make sure I have enough underneath, which I don't. I was afraid of that. Remember, you don't want your pie crust to stick to the table. If it sticks to the table, it's going to make your job a little harder here in a minute. Now I have a piece pulling apart here. I'm not sure you can really see that. There's a line here that's pulling apart, so I'm just going to wet my finger. After it gets a paintbrush, put it across there, and then fold over the pie crust. And it should repair that cut. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you're making it into as close to a round circle as you can. Again, that'll make your life easier as you put it in the pie pan. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to cut some of it off anyway, some of that overhang. All right, so I think I have a pretty good square or circle there. Again, I got a little, I wonder if I didn't get quite enough moisture in my pie crust. It's getting just a little bit separated there. All right. So from here, the easiest way, there's a couple of different ways you can pick up your pie crust. You can pick it up over the top of your rolling pin, or you can fold it. I think it's easiest to fold it, so I just fold it in half once, and half again, and then I have a more manageable pie crust. You grab your pan. You don't have to worry about greasing your pie dish or your pie pan because there's enough fat in the pie crust itself that it's not going to be hard to get up. All right. So you put that down like it's in a quarter shape, right? Because we cut it into or fold it into a quarter, and then unfold it. Okay. From there, you can kind of, that one part didn't separate it again on me. So from there, you can kind of move things around as you need to. I have some overhang over here, and I have a little bit less over here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my pie crust up, drag it a little bit, and it will be fine. Then from there, you just pick up the edges, seat it down in there, and then you're ready to fill it. There we go. All right, so like I said, you guys can go on, or you can't go on. You put on Google Classroom your the video that I made, the roux to make the filling for this pie crust. For here, you're just going to spoon it into your pie crust. You want to be sure when you're using freshly made ingredients like this, excuse me, that they're not too hot. If this mixture was hot, again, it's going to be the same thing as if you let your fat melt. You have to have your fat be a solid fat when it goes into the oven, or it's not going to turn out. It's going to be more of a mealy crust instead of that tender, flaky layers like we like so well. All right, it looks like I have just a little bit too much. That's okay, we're just going to make it a full pie. Maybe I'll freeze some of the other stuff. There we go. Maybe I have to do some sort of some research and make some sort of soup out of this mixture. All right. So, let me I have to rotate things a little bit. I don't have much room here to work with. But I'm going to get things out of the way here, and now I'm going to make that top crust, right? So, same thing. Actually, though, this time, because I had trouble with that first one, I'm going to just drizzle just a little bit more liquid onto my pie crust and see if I can't get that worked in a little bit better. All right, get that out of the way. I have many videos I'm doing today. I'm doing your guys' video. I did the video with how to make a roux for advanced culinary, and then I think I'm going to make a banana bread for 7th and 8th grade. I think that's something that they would have fun doing. So Katie and Sydney, you can make, Libby make you a banana bread to go with your chicken pot pie. And your mom can thank me later for you guys providing dinner. All right, here we go. Or maybe not thank me later because now she has to go to the store. I'm not sure. All right, so once again, this one feels loose, so I'm not as worried about it, and it's not sticking to my table at all, but I want to make sure it's not. Otherwise, when it comes time to pick it up, it's just going to be that much more difficult. So, just a little bit dry here. Or sticky, I guess, not dry. All right, so we got that pretty well laid out. Turned out more of a square this time than a circle, but that's okay. Same thing, I'm just gonna fold it in half again, and that to me is a more manageable thing to pick up. I'm gonna scooch over my pie crust here. All right. So from here on the bottom crust, because it's going to be a double crust, you don't have to worry about having extra to flute it. So you actually can cut it off right at the edge of the pan. And you don't need that extra. I do have a little spot here that's just a little bit shy. That's okay. We'll cover it up when we put the top on. It won't be any big deal. We're going to do that all the way around. Cut that extra pie crust off. Get rid of it. So you could, with the extra pie crust, a couple of things you could do. You could, like sometimes I have the smaller, the little 4-inch pie tins available, and I go ahead and make some smaller ones. The problem you have to be careful with is, remember, gluten manipulation is so important with gluten. So we already have liquid, we already have flour, that's our first 2 steps. That third step is manipulation. That's the one that we can control the most often. So this has already been mixed and rolled out. So if I put these back together and make a smaller one, it probably will still turn out because it hasn't been mixed that much. But just keep in mind it might be a little bit more mealy than what the big crust would be. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, as far as having that extra one, I think it depends on who you are, right? If you're someone who would enjoy taking that to work or school and having those leftovers, then maybe you wouldn't care that it's not the pristine crust. If you're somebody who does not appreciate leftovers and wouldn't like that mealy crust, then you don't have to do it. All right, so here we go. It's laid over. It's just a little bit short in a couple of places. I'm just looking to make sure that a couple of places it's short. It's not super short, it's just not perfect. But it doesn't line up with those other places where the bottom was short, because that would be more of a disaster, right? When you cut this one, what I like to do is make my crust even with the table. So here you can see I just make it down there even with the table and cut off there. The thing I like about pie crusts, especially when I'm making them just for my family, is that it's pretty forgiving if I get it too short or too long. Who cares? It's just a little bit ugly, right? It might be more, I mean, if you're sending it someplace or doing some sort of contest, I mean, you know, we're good enough we could probably do contests because we're pretty fabulous at this. That was sarcasm, by the way. Then we could, then you probably would care a little bit more. All right, so there we go. From here, how you go ahead and finish these edges off is you want to make sure you crimp these edges. So you pick up both the edges, tuck under that top edge, just like that, and give it a little pinch, okay? You're going to do that all the way around, tucking under that top edge into the bottom edge, pinch it. Just a little bit long. There you go. You're going to tuck it, pinch, and then keep doing that all the way around. Now, if you're doing this for, say, again, if you're selling it or you're doing it for, I don't know, a family dinner, taking it someplace, there's lots of decorative things you can do with that double pie crust that I don't know that I would really take the time to do at home, but certainly you can do. There's lots of fun things you can do. I don't know if you guys remember last semester when they brought in little, Katie Bennett brought in the little, was it Katie or was it Alex? I don't remember. Anyway, brought in the little leaf printouts when we did our Thanksgiving pies. So that's certainly always an option. There's other lattice work and stuff that you can do that's really fun. All right, so since now we have that done, we've pinched the edges. Hopefully now our filling won't fall out in the oven. I always, when I cook these, I cook them on a pie pan just in case. I'm gonna go real quick, go ahead and go around and make the edges a little bit decorative just because it's easy. All I do is pinch 2 fingers, or, and then stick the third one in between, just like that. And it makes that fun little V pattern. The last thing you have to do with a double crust pie is go ahead and vent it, which I will show you here in just a second as I get around here. Keep in mind, if this were a single crust pie, there is that thing, you can different types of single crust pie. If you're making like a pumpkin pie, then you cook the pie crust with the pie filling in it. It's simple. You don't have to do much. If you're doing a pudding pie, you're going to cook your pie crust and then fill it. In that case, you have to do what's called blind cook or blind bake. And what that is you're going to stick the pie crust in the oven with nothing in it. Keep in mind you want to go ahead and poke it with a fork around it to vent that pie crust, otherwise it will bubble up on you. All right, so we have this all done. I'm going to make a fun little, some cuts here at the top to vent it. Hopefully we won't have a mess at the end. And then it's ready for the oven. This one calls for 35 minutes in the oven. And then, but the last 15 to 20 minutes to go ahead and put foil around the edges so that it doesn't burn your pie crust. All right, so that is that. I will put these on Google Classroom, and you guys will, hopefully on Monday when we come together at 2 o'clock, you guys can tell me how everything worked out for you, and we'll have a good discussion about pie. Thank you.